facts, the full coverage? How do you know what's in the media is accurate or truthful? Have you ever wondered as to how reporters and editors arrive at their stories and publish them with complete confidence? With internet news reports, broadcasting, and television coverage, there is much diversity in what's released. However, what's reliable and factual is the chief concern among readers and among audience members. Currently, the debate is between newspapers and internet journalism. Hello, my name is David, and by the end of my presentation, you will be persuaded that print journalism is superior in its reporting, coverage, editing, and ethical standards than any form of journalism. Ever since its beginning, print journalism has been the only source of media that's required strict editing and personal responsibility among its reporters and editors. Print journalism is ancient, but in a good way. According to a history of journalism from an article, A Profession Intertwined with the Nation's History, journalism goes all the way back to the Bible, and then to the introduction of the printing press. During the 15th century, when the movable printing press was around, people then were beginning to write and publish. This leads to the first newspaper that was in circulation in England called the Daily Courant. However, as newspaper publications blossomed, they were quickly shut down. The public occurrence was abolished in the American colonies because the editor had no license. This just proves that people wanted truth, people wanted reliability, and they wanted accuracy in the media. Leading into 1735, Peter Zenger, publisher of the New York Weekly Journal that became the New York Times, was arrested for libelous statements in the paper, slander. This just proves that even when newspapers were in their formative stages, there was a desire for truth and truth only. People were adamant about discontinuing any form of media that was fraudulent. But in turn, he was exonerated because he actually wrote on fact, but with a negative tone. And as print journalism evolved, they realized that what's being written in an objective form can very well be fact and not so much a slander, as long as the tone is correct and it's addressed to the audience, a proper audience. As newspapers evolved, the guidelines for reporting became more neutral and objective, just to convey to its audience an observation of factuality in the news, business and politics in the land. Now, to look at the emergence of internet blogs that we see today, even though they're popular and are beating out the papers, anyone can write something and post it. There's no form of editing, no fact-checking. I wrote for my high school newspaper, and I write for the UV Post here. And even though we're not official, the SPJ, Society of Professional Journalism, still applies. A journalist should test for accuracy of information for all sources, diligently seek out subjects of news stories to give them an opportunity to respond to the allegations of wrongdoing, to never distort content, never plagiarize, and examine every culture through a lens. To be fair and balanced is what newspaper reporting is all about. The SPJ has been operating since 1909, and in some cases, just recently, just to prove how stringent and strict their ethics are, a reporter, Jason Blair, who wrote for the New York Times, had been fabricating stories, taking quotes from other newspapers that other people had said, and people had, rearranging stories, and just totally fraudulent. And this didn't go on for any longer than a month. He was quickly caught, quickly found out. Editors, people had been calling in, and this just supports the very belief that the editing in print journalism is far more important. It's far more strict than anything in broadcasting or on the internet. There is, of course, the value in print journalism that we even see to this day. Journalism was seen as something highly valuable to society back during the Watergate scandal. That's when it proved its efficacy to society. Society was the investigative articles that Bob Woodward and Carl Bernstein wrote served as a personal account of a controversial situation, and as a result, it led to President Nixon's resignation. Given political and economic crises, journalists have won prizes and awards for their integrity. Daniel Pearl, who wrote for the Wall Street Journal, who unfortunately lost his life in Iraq. Dr. Hunter S. Thompson, who wrote for ESPN, Sports, a few other newspaper publications. were both known for their integrity in reporting. Looking at the future of journalism, there is a lot of uncertainty. As what's been said, blogging, internet news, which is popular, some of which is independent and not concentrated on following any ethical codes, however, is out there in circulation. But according to the polls done by Angus Reid, a public opinion guru, the numbers are showing that many students and employed persons read the top 3 national newspapers, for many reasons. I hope that now you have a better understanding of the value of reading newspapers. Moreover, if you want to tune into media, you know how reliable print media is over anything. I told you about the history of newspapers and the procedures in operating them. Newspapers have more history and more traditional values over blogging or whatever else is being crafted to construct false opinions. I'm going to leave you with this. From a trustworthy form of media, print journalism is the only media enterprise that democracy ultimately requires, and is the only media practice that is specifically mentioned and protected by the Constitution. It all started with the newspapers.
Nice work.